Hello and welcome to today's Tech Talk on improving how business and operations users interact with optimization models. My name is Haley. I'm part of the Nextmv team and I'll be your MC for today. Today's presenters are Carolyn Mooney, CEO of Nextmv, and David Yiser, product designer at Nextmv. This session is going to cover a quick overview of Nextmv to set up a preview of new and upcoming features aiming to improve business user and decision modeler interactions. We're saving time at the end for questions, so I encourage you to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. You can also use the chat off to the side. Just keep an eye on that host and panelist versus everyone toggle to make sure that your question or comment goes to the right place. So let's quickly get oriented, and then I'll hand it off to Carolyn and David to take a tour of what's in the works. All right, so optimization is a team sport. There are some key players that we focus on. They're the people that are building the models. So these are the operations researchers and decision scientists. There are the folks that are integrating models and monitoring them as services. These are software developers and engineers. And then there are the people that are interacting with or consuming the model output. So analysts, operators, and business stakeholders. We've really honed the interface between modelers and software engineers, and we're going to take a quick look at how. So as a refresher, Nextmv is a platform for managing and collaborating on all of your optimization work. So that means you can bring your decision model code to Nextmv to accelerate how you build, test, and deploy these models into live business processes. This means you can utilize popular optimization integrations to create fully featured decision apps, which leverage a common API layer. This turns your decision models into microservices that can be fully explored in the Nextmv UI. It's also easy to create and run experiments for model testing and validation. There are features for uploading and managing input sets for run reproducibility and referenceability. There's also the ability to view charts and experiment results and share them, as well as hook into CI/CD workflows. Nextmv also streamlines how teams manage model versions and partition data. So you can see that you can do that by region or by environment. You can view and audit run history, capture log data, and also control account access and with varying team members. So there's a lot of goodness here. All of this is just ready to go. No engineering support needed for build out, infrastructure, and maintenance. It all just works. Today's Tech Talk is focused on the interaction between ops researchers and decision scientists and the business stakeholders. And as a side note here, as we're going through the presentation, this business stakeholder group is really quite diverse. This can range from VPs of operations and other executives to product managers to supply chain analysts to hands-on practitioners. So you may hear us reference this group by a couple of different names as we go through the content today. So let's look at the interaction outside between these two groups outside of the Nextmv context. So it's likely that an analyst might spot an issue, report it to the decision science team to say, hey, this doesn't look quite right. Emails, screenshots, charts, and chats will start flying. The modeling team looks to reproduce the issue. So this means tracking down and cobbling together data from varying sources. Meetings get held, discussions unfold, and eventually a resolution is found. Now, this is all worthwhile for the business and it's necessary for the business, but it's often very time consuming. What we're working on at Nextmv is introducing new capabilities to kind of streamline these workflows. So note on what you're about to see. Everything is based on common patterns that we've observed. These are also items that are on our roadmap, just in varying states of maturity. And this is a very feedback focused session. So your input, reactions, and emojis to anything you're seeing on screen are welcome. We'd like to hear from you. So I'm about to hand it over for Carolyn and David to walk through 3 scenarios that highlight different features that are in the works. The first scenario is going to look at a situation in which routes don't look quite right. The second scenario is going to look at a situation in which too many avocados is not necessarily a good thing. And finally, we'll look at a situation in which one particular analyst is looking to compare their solution to what the optimization model produced. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Carolyn and David.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley. All right. So we kind of set the stage here to talk a lot about the interaction between our business stakeholders or our ops team and our modelers. So we've obviously existed in this space for quite a while. So we put together some fun scenarios of things that might actually happen out in the field. And each of the scenarios has a little bit of a backstory. So I'll start with this first scenario by saying this is an example company that is building routes for their drivers. And so we have a modeler who created a decision model that generates the batches and the assignments to the drivers that you can see here on the screen. And we have an analyst that is coming in here and saying, you know what, something is not quite right. And this is something that we see a lot when we are working both with our customers and also that we see a lot in the field and have experienced ourselves. And so take it away, Yizer. Show us this first scenario and kind of how we're going to make it better.
Yeah, so in this first scenario, we have an analyst who is taking a look at a routing model run. And in this particular case, there's a couple things about the routes that the analyst doesn't like. And so he's going to leave a comment on the run, submit it, and then close the comment panel and move on to the next thing on his to-do list. So now we're going to switch over to a different view. This is a person on the same team as the analyst, and this person is in charge of the underlying model code. And so when the analyst posted that comment, a notification, goes out through various systems. And in this case, the modeler sees the comment come in through Slack. And so I'm going to click the link, and then the modeler's taken to the same view that the analyst was looking at. And so here we have the comment situated alongside the routing visual that was the original reference, plus any other data about the run that the modeler might need to look up. And so the modeler is going to open up the model code, make some changes to address the feedback, and then going to push that updated model to Nextmv Cloud, and then do a couple other things to make it available for new runs. So now that the new model is in Nextmv Cloud, the modeler is going to go back to the original run and is going to clone the run. And so when you clone a run, it copies over the input and configuration of the original run and then pre-fills the create new run interface. And since the updated model has already been uploaded to the cloud, we're going to run on the new model. So the modeler just clicks create new run. And so then in the result view of the updated model, the modeler can see that the routes are now indeed clustered as requested. And she could check other parts of the run to make sure that the KPIs are still met and all of that. So the modeler is happy with the updates, and so she's going to copy that link and then go back to the original run and then leave a comment to the analyst with a link to the new run. And like before, that comment will go, a notification will go out, and so it just makes it's an efficient way for the analyst to come back, see the updates, and then close the loop.
Awesome. Yeah, I think what I really like about the way we've been designing this and something that I always found challenging is kind of keeping context between both the modeler and the operator that's kind of consuming the output from these models. And so by having these comments kind of live alongside the model itself, right, or the run itself, you can really get that full context and speed up the addressing the issue, right, and make sure you can kind of collect the appropriate feedback. Because a lot of times you'll get comments that are coming in about the same model, but like different sides of it, like maybe issues with different constraints, right? Or you could also get, hey, like I wanted to adjust, these configuration parameters, things like that. So I guess maybe one other question that I have, or maybe something we should go over is like, how do all these get summarized, right? Because it's great to see it here on a view with like an individual run. But what if I have like, many comments on a particular version?
Yeah, so comments on individual entities like runs, they can be rolled up into different levels of the informational hierarchy of the app. And so, for example, you could go and click on this run's instance and go to the instance page and then go to the activity view. And that activity view would collect all of the comments that were made related to the instance. And then, those would be collected and shown alongside other product updates as well.
Yeah, I could see this being super valuable as you're kind of planning, new iterations of the model, right? Kind of collecting that feedback and understanding kind of where you need to spend some time. And so I think one of this feature is currently in active design on our side. So we'd love to hear any of your thoughts, feedbacks, comments about the structure and the workflow that we're proposing here. Some of the extensions that we've thought about are being able to obviously send those notifications to different places, whether it be email or Slack. things like that. And then also be able to integrate with common ticketing systems. So whether you're using, Jira, Linear, et cetera, being able to say, hey, generate a ticket from this information so you can start to collect those into projects and maybe get it into more of your standard, agile workflow. So that's great. So we talked a little bit about feedback and kind of speeding up that cycle from feedback to a new live model. What if we switch gears here to another model and talk about our next scenario? So one of the challenges with interacting, I think, with business stakeholders or with operators that are working on these models every day is from a technical side, we might like to think about solver parameters and JSON data and interoperability with other systems. But from a end user perspective, how do you get them to understand the input and output data that they're looking at and really be able to reason about the model performance? So maybe we'll hop back in here with a new scenario, new model, and we can go through that.
Yeah, so in this next scenario, we again have an analyst who is investigating a model run. In this case, it's a price optimization model. And so the key thing to note here is the model is JSON in, JSON out, but the analyst is able to view that JSON data in tabular format. And so this tabular view into the data would be available for any app, no matter what the format of the input and the output is. And so the analyst could see the solution result, the computed statistics, all in a nice table view. And another part of this experience is a new feature that we just released, and that's the ability to attach custom visuals to your run. So in this case, the modeler has attached several Plotly charts to this run. And so the important thing to note is that these visuals are associated with the run. And so they're a permanent part of the run record. Anytime you make a run, these same visuals will be there. And we support Plotly and Chart.js. So any sort of chart you can do in those two libraries, you could do with your custom visuals. And then we also support interactive maps. And so anything you could do in GeoJSON, you could do on a map as part of your custom run visualizations. So anyways, let's say in this scenario, the analyst is reviewing the charts and sees that there is waste in the Mid-South region. And so there's a zero waste initiative at the company. And so she wants to see if she can reduce the waste to zero in Mid-South. And so like before, we're going to clone the run. And in the same way, that run's input and configuration are copied over and the create run interface is pre-filled with that data. But the key difference here is, again, that same tabular view into the data is applied to the create new run interface. And so this lays out all the data in a table view, and then you can kind of edit whichever particular values that you want. And so in this situation, the analyst is keyed in on the max product allocation for the Mid-South. She thinks that 4 is too high, and so she's going to change that to 3.5. And then we're going to run the model with the new input, and we can go to the result view, go into the statistics, and we can see that indeed waste has now been reduced to 0. And as before, we'd have the same charts that would reflect the new run data. And so in this chart, we can see that waste has now gone down to 0.
Nice. I think this is maybe my personal most requested feature, and also the one that I've been super excited about, getting out there. Because when I was working at Lockheed and also at Grubhub and things like that, we would talk a lot about keeping our business users, stakeholders, operators in context and not kind of switching the views all the time that they're looking at. So I think it's really a good way to get people comfortable with the model is to kind of maintain these output views and maintain them as artifacts that are always produced on every single run. And so super excited about this one. Like Yaizer said, the custom visuals feature went live this week. So certainly test it out, give us your feedback. And we'd love to hear from you if it's, you want more packages supported in that. And, we'd love to hear from you. The other piece of this, I think that is cool, is giving analysts and operators a way to test new configuration, right, or changes to the input data in an easy fashion is a great way to build confidence in the model, right? Because you can, by testing or giving kind of the keys to testing, like you can get more reasoning about like what different parameters do to your output. I think another way to think about that is something that we've been in, I would say, the earliest stage of our development in discovery mode right now on a new feature that we call challenge mode. And so this is a different way for operators to kind of challenge the results and change the output versus changing the input. So maybe let's hop into that third scenario next.
Yeah, so you may have noticed when the analysts clicked the new run menu, there was an option called challenge run. And so if challenge run is clicked, it opens up a new run interface, but instead of a new run, it's called a challenge run. And so in this particular scenario, that the analyst wants to see if they can find a better solution than the model did. Say, for example, she wants to see if she can increase profit margins while maintaining zero waste. And so in challenge mode, what you're doing is you're modifying the solution values. So instead of the input that's copied over, the run that you're challenging, the solution from that run, those values are copied over and presented again in a tabular view where you can edit the solution values and then recompute the statistics. So in this scenario, the analyst changes a few of the solution values and then is going to recompute the statistics by clicking challenge run. And so when challenge run is clicked, the new run statistics are recomputed and they're saved as a challenge run in your system. And so the run is, again, it's a permanent part of your record. And so you can go into the results from the challenge run and you can see the recomputed statistics. And since this is a challenge run, the recomputed statistics will be compared to the original run statistics, so you can kind of get a quick view into what changed. And in this case, no matter what the difference of the profit margin was, it's going to be invalidated because we have new waste that was introduced when we changed the solution values. And since this was a challenge run that only recomputed the statistics, but because it's a run that is based on another run, it copies over all of the same data, all of the same configuration. And so we have these pricing charts that are part of that challenge run as well. And so that new recomputed data would also be reflected in the charts. Here you see we have the new waste that was added.
Awesome. Yeah, what I really like about that, and I think I saw some comments about it actually in the chat as well, is that this gives us a way to kind of compare two outputs. So in a more general sense, we've also been thinking about this for just being able to select two runs and kind of put them into this mode, right? So you get kind of the challenge mode can be a manual solution, right? Challenging an automated solution, or it could be two automated solutions going against each other. And so you can see kind of the delta between the two. I think that's something that a lot of times when you're looking through individual runs and you're just kind of playing with a couple settings, it's very helpful to kind of see the back and forth between those two. So this is in discovery right now. So if you have thoughts, comments, feedback about kind of the workflow here, we would love to chat with you about it and see how we can better support that. I think the nice part here is it kind of builds off of what we are currently implementing with tabular data views and ways to clone runs. It just kind of adds in this what I call like calculator mode, right? So you have this difference between the solution, which is like actually the assignments, right, for routes or the prices for avocados, and the computed KPIs or statistics on top of that plan. So that is what is being kind of recomputed in the calculator mode, right, is the statistics portion of the model. So it kind of bypasses the optimization, goes straight to the statistics calculation. So I think this is I'm super excited about all these features, but maybe we can switch back, Haley, to the slides now and kind of summarize and get to some Q&A.
That.
Yeah, so what did we just walk through? There was quite a bit packed in there, so I'll try to summarize briefly for each of the scenarios. So in scenario one, we really focused a lot on feedback and that cycle of getting from feedback to a next version of the model or a next configuration of the model. And the ways we enable that quickly are through the direct commenting, the comment summary, the model change log. And I think the nicest part about this, from my perspective, is being able to keep all of that data and commentary co-located with the model. So you have full context as a modeler and as an operator on like kind of what's going on with that artifact or multiple artifacts within your application. And so that piece of work is in design right now. We're working through kind of the exact workflow that will be supported. And so that was what the visuals are that Yiser walked through today. Scenario two, it was a little bit more of the features that we just released for custom visualization. And really what we focused on there is kind of giving easier ways to understand what's happening with the input and output. And that's through both custom viz and tabular data and being able to clone runs quickly and get those same views, right? So get to interact with tabular data as we're making new runs, right, or testing, our assumptions, right, as an analyst. And so the tabular data is the only thing that is not currently released, but we're currently working on that now. The other two things, cloning runs and custom visuals, are both released. So feel free to try those out, test them for us, give us some feedback and let us know what you think. And then finally, the third scenario is something that we're in discovery on. It's thinking about how to compare runs, about how to compare them not just for individual runs that we've made in automated systems, but allowing users to kind of challenge their understanding of a particular output and say, maybe I think what I can do is better. And that might be because you have better business context on the ground information than the modeler has, or that might be because you just know there's something different about today than yesterday. So we know that these systems, don't exist in a vacuum, and there a lot of the success for them is the interaction, right, between the business side, the modelers, and the software engineers. So we're super excited about these scenarios. We'd love to get your feedback. And Haley, I'll turn it over to you to kind of close us out.
Yes, and we have a few questions. There's been a lot of really good comments and feedback coming in as we've gone through as well. So I'm going to try and work my way backwards from the freshest scenario to the one that we started with, if we can. So bear with me. But I think with the scenario three, there was one question that was coming in around kind of diving more deeply into what was happening with that challenge run. So saying that the analyst changes the output and we recompute the statistics. The question here is, what happens to the input required to achieve this output? Is there any check if such, desired output is even feasible? And if not, do you make some trade-offs automatically?
Yeah, so obviously that is like model specific. In this particular model, where the way we architected it, we did need some of the input configuration in order to recompute the statistics. Usually, and the way we've advocated for kind of structuring models is that your solution is really the plan, right? So it's like I said before, the set of assignments, right? Or in this case, right, the prices for avocados and the quantity of avocados that are going to be distributed. And then the things that were computed in this model for pricing optimization were the expected demand, which relied on the coefficients that were passed in the input, and then also the sales and waste based on the prices that were set. So certainly it is possible that you can be dependent in challenge mode on input and also on configuration. And so those are things that we're kind of thinking through about how to make that structure really straightforward and easy. But the idea is that the modeler can kind of control some of that challenge mode, like recompute or recalculation, so to speak.
Excellent. And I may be asking, but this next one be asking you to repeat something you just said. But one of the participants wanted to circle back on exactly what the user is changing or inputting in challenge mode. Do you mind refreshing everyone's memory there?
Yeah, so with the manual version of challenge mode, really what's happening is you're changing the output plan, right? So the solution that the optimization came to, you want to say, like, instead of the price for avocados being $1.50 in Mid-South, you want to change it to $2 in Mid-South, right? So you're changing the solution, and then you're recomputing what we call the statistics, right? Or the plan KPIs, right? So the plan KPIs, right, for the prices and quantities in the avocado example were the expected demand, right, which is based off of the price that you set, the sales, and the waste, right? And so those are kind of dependent on the prices and quantities that you put into that the solution drives, right? So the challenge mode is really kind of, that's why I said used as a calculator mode, right? It's kind of bypassing the optimization part and just saying, hey, what is the value of this plan given, right, my stated objective, right, and the KPIs that I usually output in the statistics. And so that's definitely one that we see. Some people like to think about thinking about this as like initial solution sometimes, right? So passing that kind of stuff into a model is pretty common practice for things like warm starting, and so we're just kind of piggybacking off of that practice for a way to kind of pass through a manually driven solution there.
Excellent. All right, there's more questions and input on challenge mode. So the next one that we've gotten, it's cool.
Yeah.
If a user finds they want to challenge the solution because of some other new KPI they just realized they cared about,
Yep.
or they cared about to improve, can they add that in? Can they add statistics?
Yeah, so you can certainly add statistics to the model itself. So we have a convention for that. So the modeler is kind of in control of the statistics definition. The reason I like that is because that it basically is like a data dictionary or a managed data mart, so to speak, right, for your model, right? So you're not having everybody kind of compute the KPIs separately, right, and come to different conclusions about how those are calculated. And so the computation of the statistics is within the model itself, right? And so we have a convention for that. What I will say is that when you think about maybe interacting with these models via like LLMs, things like that, like where you could query some of the structured data, that is something where you could kind of ad hoc ask questions about statistics or things like that. So yeah, that's how they are structured today. We like that, like I said, we like that pairing because it kind of keeps your artifacts for your statistics kind of managed as part of that model, the same way the kind of the custom visuals are managed as like an analytics package on top of your model.
Excellent. And we're going to pivot slightly to a higher view here in a second, but I want to make sure that one more question related to challenge mode.
Yeah.
For this kind of like experience as it's being developed and discovered, are you thinking the user could enter a partial solution? So in other words, fix some variables and the solver can recompute the remaining variables.
Yeah, I certainly think that's possible. That's somewhat what's happening here in the pricing one, right? Because we are actually recomputing the expected demand, which is in this case, like the input for the pricing optimization model is actually a regression model that says like, given this price, this is how much demand you will get for avocados, right, in a particular region. And so from that perspective, right, like adding kind of like a partial solution, right, is you're basically just changing like parts of that solution. You're not changing the whole thing. So yes, I think that is something that we're looking at. I think some models like that's a little harder than others. So that's a caveat I'll say there. But we are trying to make it easy to structure this and kind of give you a standard format for the modeler to enable this kind of calculator mode feature within their model base.
All right, excellent. All right, we're gonna go a little bit higher level, but I think this also ties into a lot of really excellent capabilities that are available. So we've got a question in the Q&A around, do you have anything with the explainability of the solutions? So to quickly explain why the model chose A and not B.
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of features that are in individual solvers around explainability. So when you talk about like kind of validity of constraints, right, or kind of violations and things, a lot of different solver packages, right, or modeling layers like allow for some of that explainability. When I think about explainability, I think a lot about the fact that these models create really large plans, right? So, if you're working in as a route planner, you might be planning routes for like 1,000 drivers, right? And they all might have like 20 stops on their route, right? How do you interact with that data is part of what I consider explainability, right? The how and why the underlying solver made the choice that it made, right, is a little bit more of a complicated thing. There's been a lot of really cool, I think, research going on about that in the operations research community and the solver community. So we're trying to leverage what has been done in the different solvers and kind of expose that easily in our platform, right, via options. So a lot of them have like maybe like verbosity modes, things like that you can leverage as an option for runs that kind of check constraints or check validity of input and output, things like that. But yeah, we're more to come there. I think we're thinking about ways that we can use like LLMs on top of like of input and output data for better explainability for kind of the end user.
Excellent. And that gets us right to time. I saw the comment in the chat from Christina about sending materials about explainability. We'll make sure to share that and many other assets after today's session. So we're going to actually wrap this up with a few closing comments. And folks should be able to see my screen once more here. Today's session will share the recording and materials with everyone, a couple of links to dive into some more good stuff. Feel free to respond to that with more comments and feedback. We're always game to chat, so don't hesitate to be in touch. Next week, we have a presentation on running Hexley models on Nextmv that you can sign up for on our website at www.nextmv.io. And with that, we're going to close it up. Carolyn, David, that was a whirlwind tour. Very much appreciate it. Everybody that participated today, great feedback. We really appreciated all of your commentary. Don't hesitate to be in touch. Until next time.
Awesome. Thank you.